For Mercury 13, the women NASA refused to send into space. In 1959, NASA selected 7 men, including John Glenn, to become America's first astronauts. But a doctor named William Lovelace, who had helped NASA develop medical tests, wondered whether women might actually be better suited to space travel. They're generally smaller and lighter, meaning an aircraft would need less fuel, less oxygen, and less food. So accomplished pilot Jerry Cobb was invited to complete the same brutal physical and mental tests developed for the male astronauts. She did not just pass, she performed in the top 2% of all of the astronauts who had completed these tests and had more flying experience than John Glenn. Another 24 female pilots were tested and 13 passed initial examinations. They endured vertigo tests, exhaustion, electric shocks, freezing water being poured in their ears, and performed the same, if not better, than their male counterparts. These women later became known as the Mercury 13. Some of them were preparing for further testing with military equipment when the program just abruptly got cancelled. Jerry Cobb and fellow pilot Jane Hart took their fight to Congress in 1962, but NASA decided that they wanted to require every astronaut to be a military test pilot, and they barred women from being military test pilots. So that was seemingly just to bar women from going to space because there was nothing to suggest they weren't going to be equally as good or better at doing the space missions. Women weren't permitted to attend military test pilot school, so they were rejected because of qualifications which they legally could not obtain because they were women. And John Glenn defended NASA's position, arguing that men fighting wars and flying military aircraft was the existing social order, so shouldn't be changed. Which, obviously, because he was a white man in America at this time, why would he want to give that to other people? Although slightly ironic when he then needed a woman to test his numbers before he could fly to space. We'll get into that in a different video. The Mercury 13 were never officially NASA astronaut candidates, and none of them were selected to fly. In 1963, the Soviet Union sent Valentina Tereshkova into orbit, but America did not send a woman into space until Sally's Ride in 1983, more than 20 years after Mercury 13 had passed their tests. They would have overtaken Russia in the space race that was happening at the time as the first country to send a woman to space if they had put aside their misogyny, because when they were testing Mercury 13, Russia was not ready to send a woman to space. Unfortunately, Jerry Cobb died without ever being able to go to space. But in 2021, Mercury 13 member Wally Funk finally travelled beyond Earth's atmosphere at the age of 82. They proved that women were capable of spaceflight. The barrier wasn't their bodies, courage, or ability. It was a system specifically designed so that they could not qualify.